Hello everybody, I want to welcome you to this week's webinar. We're going to talk about the role of the coaches and the role of the players. We're here at Tiffany Green's Golf Club in Kansas City, Missouri, along with Brenndan Cooper. And we'll thank Medicus Golf and Kick-Ax Golf are our sponsors for this webinar. So we already have about 3 questions up on our screen here. We're going to talk a little bit about the role of coaches versus players, and then we'll get to some of the questions. So, Brenndan and I, we know a guy that wrote a book, and he defined 2 processes, one for the coach and one for the player. And the first one was the coach's job is to inform and explain, and then the player's job was to
absorb
and apply. Well, there's a lot of things that go into that. So, from our perspective, and we see it every single day, our job is to give the player the best information in the simplest way that they can perform that and improve whatever it is they're trying to improve.
Right.
And that can be through visual drills, it could be through talk just like we're doing now, it can be through auditory, they can hear some things, you have to figure out what kind of learner they are first. And then as we give them those things, how quickly can they implement those to start to try to lower their strokes?
Right. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that is, I think, key for a coach is being able to figure out what type of player they are, just like you were saying.
Right.
Everybody learns things differently, and that's where, Chuck and I kind of come in, is we've got to figure that part out, right there on the lesson team.
Right. And a lot of times players are trying to do something in their swing that A, they're not physically capable of doing, or B, they have a total misunderstanding of what it is they're trying to do.
Right.
So we like to tell them that, this is what you're doing now, and you're doing it 100% correct based on what you think you're trying to do.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah. Even though you may be doing it right, that you may not be, when you hit the shot, you look up, the ball may not be doing what you think it should be doing, but, that's just how golf is until you really get the feel and the repetition down.
Right.
Even if you're making the move correctly, you may not get the exact result you're wanting right off the bat.
Right. And again, from a coaching standpoint, you usually start off players, especially players that don't have a lot of experience, we're more into the teaching mode then. We're showing them the things that are what we would consider, their basics or their particular fundamentals. And then as they get better and better, we move into more of a coaching mode, which we don't work on the mechanics of the swing so much as we work on scoring opportunities, how to reduce the score, how to have good course management, and those types of things, instead of working on swing technique, 100% of the time.
Exactly.
So it takes a lot of, when you go into the coaching mode, you've got to spend more time actually on the golf course with them, letting them hit shots, then asking them why they're hitting that shot, giving them some options, and let them more or less self-discover how they can do that.
Exactly, and that was something that Ben Hogan used to say a lot of. Part of golf is a lot of self-discovery. And some of these things, especially going out on the golf course, you've got to figure a lot of these things out on your own.
Right. I mean, if you're someone that consistently hits a fade, and you have a draw pin, it may not be to your advantage to try to hit to that pin, because you'd have to start the ball out over trouble 9 times out of 10 and work it back. So, you have to learn how to take what your predominant shot is and play that shot. You're going to have some pins that are going to be accessible and some pins that won't be accessible.
Right, yeah. I mean, there's going to be pins out there which you can attack and some that you can't. You just got to take what the golf course will give you.
Right. Well, so now let's talk about the player's perspective. It's extremely difficult to get players to actually work on the things that you want them to work on.
Right.
Because they'll come back doing something totally different. And you say, why are you doing that? Well, so-and-so said I needed to do this and this. Okay, well, that may be down the road, but that's not what we're working on right now.
Yeah.
So if you watched last week's webinar, we did some outdoor shooting. We showed you how to set up practice stations for particular problems. So from the player's point of view, I mean, if I was a player and I'm going to a coach, I'm going to ask some questions. If you tell me you'd like to see, first of all, you need to find out what it is I want. And then from there, we need to build a process to get to that point. But as a player, I'm going to ask you a lot of whys. why, what is this, how's this going to affect this? So players need to ask more questions.
Yeah.
And how it relates to them and their golf swing.
Yeah, and I think that's a real key point there that I see, and I'm sure Chuck sees too, that a lot of times a player won't ask enough questions. And sometimes it's because they may be nervous or they don't want to embarrass themselves, but it really helps the process if the student can help ask a lot of questions. And so that way, it also makes sure that we're all on the same page from the very start.
Right. And and I like to ask them what their interpretation are of things. And I start by saying this doesn't mean it's going to be right or wrong. Your answer isn't right or wrong. I just want to know what your thought process is in trying to do what you're doing. So if we can change that thought process, then we can change the motion,
Yes,
so to speak.
Exactly.
So, and again, from the player's perspective, if you really want to get better, you need to identify with your coach, trust in what they're trying to get you to do, trust in the process, not the outcome of the shot or whatever it is. And then you need to set up some kind of regimen, whether it's practicing on the range or practicing at home in front of a mirror, so that you can kind of see what's happening with your golf swing.
Yeah. I mean, golf's one of those sports where, I tell my students quite a bit, I wish I had a magic wand and could wave it and you're fixed.
Right.
It's a long, drawn-out process, but that's why coaches are there, is to help lay this out, because it is a process. It's going to be something that's going to take some time to build and grow, and you'll start to really see the improvement.
Right. I mean, and it's like the people that, you get players, and I don't get so many of them anymore, but you'll get players that come up and say, hey, I need a half-hour lesson. I got a golf tournament this weekend. Oh, good. Well, when's the last time you played golf? Well, I don't play golf. Or I played 25 years ago. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is this going to be a scramble? I'll show you how to play.
Yeah. We're going to be doing chipping.
Because you're probably not going to use any of your tee shots or your approach shots. So we got to focus in on the areas where you can help your team.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So sometimes those people do come to your lesson tee, and it's just an exercise in futility. And again, you're just trying to get them to make a very, very basic motion that they can kind of control.
Right.
But at the end of the day, both parties have a responsibility. And again, our job is to get you to wherever it is you're trying to go. Now, the player's job is to obviously take the information we're getting them, process it in a way that works for them, and achieves the outcome they're trying to achieve.
Right.
So, there's a lot of things that go into this, but it is a two-way street. So I would suggest, any of you out there, when you go to look for a new coach, that you interview that coach, see if you're on the same page, because your personalities may not fit.
Right. You definitely got to make sure that if you're going to spend the time and the effort, to improve your game, definitely make sure that the coach you're going to go see is somebody that you are compatible with. For sure.
Well, and our 5SK instructors, which are located worldwide, I mean, they have been trained in the art of what we call prioritization. They'll look at a swing, they'll look in those 5 key areas, and then they will pick the key that will most benefit the other keys working with that student, so that you don't spend, a ton of time going from one thing to another to another. So, as coaches, we have to be able to find a way to get you to do something, and we may have to tell you 100 different ways before one of them clicks.
Yeah.
Because one thing doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, and normally, you can say the same thing 5 different ways, but in reality, you're working on the same thing with a student.
Exactly.
Just like you said, one of those is bound to click.
Right. And sometimes they'll say, "Boy, we're just hopping around from thing to thing." No, we're trying to find the key.
Yeah.
We're doing the same thing. I'm just giving you different ways, to see how you can sense it and do it. So,
Yeah.
but again, it's a two-way street. Everybody has to work together to do this. I mean, you look at the best players in the world, that's what they do. They trust their coach. They do what their coach is asking them to do. They put in the time to affect the changes.
They put in the time, they put in the quality of practice.
Right.
They, like you mentioned earlier with the stations and from the last webinar, I mean, you've got to make sure you take the time and you practice things correctly.
Yeah, because like we said, just beating balls doesn't do anything.
Right.
When Ben Hogan said that he dug it out of the dirt, That doesn't mean he just hit ball after ball after ball. He was trying different things, different feels, different motions to get the flight he was trying to get.
It goes right back to that self-discovery.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And for those of you that don't know, I mean, when Ben Hogan was not as successful on tour, his golf swing at the top, his golf swing was clear over here like this. Looked kind of like John Daly.
Mm-hmm.
And when he changed it to here is when he started having all his success. He found a way to keep the face from getting closed too quick. He found a way to shorten the backswing to get more in time with his body.
Yep.
In fact, if you've ever been to the World Golf Hall of Fame, if you go to the Hogan exhibit, it's got his locker there from Shady Oaks. And he's got all these alpaca sweaters in here, and all the sweaters are worn right here at the right shoulder, or at the left shoulder. And that was his swing key for changing the length of his swing. He swung back until his shoulder hit his chin, and that's when he stopped. So he wore a hold of all these good swings. So anyway, we also want to share that with you. I'm going to go up and read some of these questions now, and we'll get right to these. All right, so the first question. What is the secret of keeping a straight, unbending, left arm in the backswing? All pros seem to have a perfectly straight left arm and elbow. And this is from Gary. All right, Gary. So I'm going to have Brenndan grab a hold of this club here. And first, let's define what a straight left arm is. Your left arm has a joint there, and this joint has somewhere between 3 and 5 degrees of bend in it. So if you still have between 3 and 5 degrees of bend, that's straight. If you are locking it out, you are hyperextending the arm. So go ahead and get set up, and let's go this way so they can see your left arm. All right, so now what happens is if you take the club back and you allow both elbows to bend, what you get is this look, and that's what you're talking about. Now, if Brenndan just takes the heel pad, or the pad of his right thumb, if you're a right-handed player, and pushes outward, that's what maintains that radius. So it's a feel of pushing the club away from you via the right hand. So as long as you keep that pushing, it'll work pretty good. 1 second, I'm going to grab this little thing here, and I'll show you kind of how this works. So if we had so I've got a string on a ball here, and I'm just going to set this down like this. So if I go back, you notice that this string is pretty taut. Now I'm pushing against this grip. Now if I take the pressure off of that, you'll see how the string collapses. So I've got pressure in it right here. I just want to keep the same pressure over here. And when I start down, I want to keep the same pressure. I don't want it to go like this. Right, so I'm always keeping pressure against that shaft via this right hand for a right-handed player.
Yep.
So hope that helps, Gary. So our next question. This question is from Herb. Is it easier to make a shoulder turn with the wrist hinge opposed to making a turn with little or no wrist hinge? So it's actually, I mean, you can do either one. So if I just take the club and I don't hinge my wrist, whatever that is, okay, at some point you have to, because if you don't, you'll go like this, right? You'll just lift right up. You see it, Steve Stricker kind of does his wedges like this. He keeps this thing away from him. Other players take this up really quick. The key with the shoulder turn is you want to try to make the butt of the club and your navel move together until it reaches right about right forearm level to the ground. You can see your shoulder turn is not complete now. Now just complete the shoulder turn. So all you're trying to do is you're trying to turn this left shoulder to a spot that is occupied by the center of your chest. So if I just turn this shoulder to here, I've got my 90-degree shoulder turn. So that's all I'm thinking about, turning my shoulders and letting my club come up in the air, whether I am doing as quickly as possible off the ball, as late as possible, or somewhere in between. So that doesn't really affect it, I don't think.
Right, I agree with you there.
All right, let's see what our next question is. Okay, Herb, boy, you're having all kinds of trouble, aren't you? I'm having trouble transferring weight to my front foot on the downswing. Can an open club face in the backswing and through swing be caused be a cause. I'm guessing that's what it says because it's not scrolling here on the sidebar. All right, so all you want to do, I mean, you can swing up to the top with a wide open club face, and when you come down, it's still going to be wide open unless you close it. And that doesn't matter if you have your weight forward or not have your weight forward. A really good drill to feel this, two drills actually. One of them is you just take your normal stance, and move this foot over, your left foot over, start the club out in front of you. Swing it back as it gets about to this right forearm level to the ground. Step with your front foot and feel the pressure going there. The other way to do it is to pick your left foot up off the ground, step down, and pick your right foot off the ground. So you have a ball there, lift it off the ground, plant it. When you plant it back down, lift the right foot off the ground. That'll get you a sense of moving side to side. Anything else you want to add to that?
That's a great drill, and actually used that drill just this morning with a student. And
Yeah.
it really helps feel that weight get on the left side and come down to the downswing.
Right, and we need to distinguish between the weight and the pressure because everybody talks about weight shifts, and it's actually more of what's called a pressure shift. You're putting pressure into the ground. This would be a weight shift, and we really don't want any of that. What we want is the pressure shifting. The weight is actually the club in the arms, not necessarily your mass of your body, but it is feeling the pressure, and you're just doing this. Pick it up, pick it up. So as you pick this, I would start over here with your right foot off the ground. Plant your right foot, swing back. Plant the left foot, swing down. And just keep doing this. So you can feel that pressure.
Yeah, and like Chuck said, go ahead and keep doing that, Chuck. As he's doing this, notice his head is staying very steady as he does this drill. So that's definitely one key component to make sure that you're being aware of. Is like you said, don't let that head do a bunch of teeter-totter.
Right. So Herb, I hope those two things helped you out, buddy. If you got any other issues, you can contact us and we'll address them as well. We want to thank everybody for being here today for the webinar. We will see you next week. And until then, hit them straight. Talk to you later.